هو هيشتغل
أقول لكم بصدق وبرغم أية عوامل قد أكون بنيت عليها موقفي في الأزمة، فإنني على استعداد لتحمل المسؤولية كلها، ولقد اتخذت قرارا أريدكم جميعا أن تساعدوني عليه. لقد قررت أن أتنحى تماما ونهائيا عن أي منصب رسمي وأي دور سياسي، وأن أعود إلى صفوف الجماهير وأدي واجبي معها كأي مواطن آخر. إن قوى الاستعمار تتصور أن جمال عبد الناصر هو عدوها، وأريد أن يكون واضحا أمامهم أنها الأمة العربية كلها.
أنها الأمة العربية كلها. في خطأ يا أستاذ يحيى.
هو عبد الناصر كان لا يجيد الحديث باللغة الفصحى.
فعلا. طيب. So. More than any other utterance of Nasser, the 1967 Tanahi or resignation speech occupies a special place in Egyptian cinema. In fact, the speech is the most featured archival footage in the history of Egyptian cinema, surpassing other seminal moments in modern Egyptian history, such as the funeral of Nasser himself in 1970, the Egyptian crossing of the Suez Canal in the 1973 October War, or Sadat's visit to Jerusalem in 1977. The speech is remarkably remembered for the reaction it inspired in hundreds of thousands of Egyptians, who, hearing of their leader's intention to depart office, poured into the streets of Cairo for 2 consecutive nights. Their sole goal, surprisingly, the reinstatement of Nasser himself. Notwithstanding the length of the speech, its deliverance lasting around 23 minutes, the single most important part that reverberated through Egyptian movies is the one in which Nasser, towards the end, announces his resignation, which is the one that we just listened to. The speech was so much identified with this part that it was labeled Khitab al-Tanahi, or the resignation speech. Ironically, the speech with which Nasser intended to leave office would be his most memorialized and immortalized act, both visually and orally, in Egyptian cinema as well as in other media outlets. The revolutionary figure, hero of nationalization, triumphant of the 1956 tripartite aggression, builder of the High Dam, and advocate of the peasants and the poor, is predominantly reduced into images of a crushed man, his face sweating, his voice, once powerful, low and quavering. Nowhere in Nasser's life is the tragic quality of his character better manifested than in the 1967 defeat. Even his funeral 3 years later, attended by unprecedented millions of mourners, would fall short of competing visually with his image delivering the resignation speech. The tragic hero and the dreams he lived by, in fact the whole era that was associated with him, all ceased to exist on June 9, 1967. And the resignation speech was an honest, internal sense of the end. Doubtless, the speech, coupled with the circumstances that led to it, is laden with implications that would be employed by several filmmakers. However, the persistence of the speech, in cinema and elsewhere, equally speaks to the unceasing impact of the 1967 defeat on Egyptian and Arab collective memory. The speech is ubiquitous primarily because it is a historical marker of a wound that is yet to heal. For instance, Syrian intellectual George Tarabishi argues that the trauma of 1967 is still manifested in Egyptians and Arabs' lives through their constant search for a father that could replace the refuge that Nasser had once offered to Arabs up to the defeat. Hence the revival after 1967 of Islamic movements and the return to the Turaf, or heritage. Sentimentalizing the speech, most of the cinematic appropriations of it focus primarily on the stepping down part, leaving aside whatever Nasser had to say concerning the actualities of the war. However, they differ on an essential aspect of the speech, the image of Nasser. For unlike most of Nasser's previous speeches, this one was televised, with Nasser's appearance magnifying its impact on viewers. As I discuss in the book, filmmakers have in later years alternated between an emotional televisual viewing experience of the speech on one hand and an oral representation of it devoid of images and where only Nasser's voice is heard on the other. وهنا أيضا يعني أريد أن أقدم مثالين سريعين على هذا. هناك على الأقل 20 فيلم سينمائي قدمت أجزاء من خطاب عبد الناصر، والغريب أن الخطاب كان أحيانا يقدم الغريب أن الخطاب كان يقدم أحيانا في أفلام تتناول الحرب، ولكنه كان يقدم في أحيانا أخرى باعتباره هكذا يعني historical marker، باعتباره شيء punctuating the events في مصر. فأحيانا كان يقدم في فيلم يتحدث عن الأب، أحيانا كان يقدم في فيلم يتحدث عن الحبيب، فنزع الخطاب من سياقه وقدم بطرق متعددة مع الصورة أحيانا وبغيرها أحيانا أخرى. فسأقدم فقط دقيقتين من أول فيلم قدم خطاب عبد الناصر، هو فيلم يوسف شاهين العصفور الذي أنتج سنة 1972، والذي كان تقريبا أول فيلم مصري يحاول أن يحلل النكسة 67. فالسياق الخطاب أن في نهاية الفيلم أو في الجزء الأخير من الفيلم أبطال الفيلم مثل كل المصريين ينتظرون كلمة من عبد الناصر تشرح ما الذي حدث، فهذا هو السياق الذي يضع فيه يوسف شاهين الفيلم. والفيلم أيضا من الأفلام القليلة التي وثقت لما حدث بعده بخروج المصريين إلى الشوارع في الحادثة التي أيضا عليها نقاش طويل، هل كانت orchestrated، هل كانت أصيلة أم أنها كانت منظمة من قبل الاتحاد الاشتراكي. فسنشاهد فقط دقيقة أو دقيقتين.
خلاص انتهينا، ونبقى حتى لو قلنا حد هنا، احنا ولاد الحتة نستخدم ونجيب أقل، ولا ايه يا عم نوف؟ معلش يا ماما مش وقت الكلام ده دلوقتي. يا حقا، كيف انت تكتبوني كده؟ طب انا مش ساكت، مش هسكت أبدا، ولا يعني انتوا شارين واحنا اللي بلاقيين. اوعوا كده كانت مجرد ان تدخل مبارك اروح اعمل لكم شارع عاملين لي كده زي ابن عديدة. يا ابني انت زي ما تكون جات مصيبة، يا ساتر، كفرتوا بالنبي وكفرتوا بربنا.
في أوقات النصر وفي أوقات المحن، في الساعات الحلوة وفي الساعات المرة، أن نجلس معا وأن نتحدث بقلوب مفتوحة وأن نتصارع حقائق، مؤمنين أنه عن هذا الطريق وحده نستطيع دائما أن نجد اتجاهنا السليم مهما كانت الظروف عصيبة ومهما كان الضوء خافتا، ولا نستطيع أن نخفي على أنفسنا أننا واجهنا نكسة خطيرة خلال الأيام الأخيرة، لكني واثق أننا جميعا نستطيع وفي مدة قصيرة أن نجتاز موقفنا الصعب، وإن كنا نحتاج في ذلك إلى كثير من الصبر والحكمة والشجاعة ومقدرة العمل المتفانية. ولقد اتخذت قرارا أريدكم جميعا أن تساعدوني عليه. لقد قررت أن أتنحى تماما ونهائيا عن أي منصب رسمي وأي دور سياسي، وأن أعود إلى صفوف الجماهير واجبي معها كأي مواطن آخر.
لا لا ابدا حرام.
طيب هذا هو الفيلم الأول. الفيلم الثاني هو الذي اتجاه آخر في السينما المصرية، أنهم لا يعرضون الصورة إطلاقا بل يعرضون صوت جمال عبد الناصر، وهو فيلم كوميدي، كوميديا سوداء إن صح التعبير. فيلم حسين كمال إحنا بتوع الأتوبيس الذي أخرج سنة 1979، وكان من أشهر الأفلام التي اعتبرت مثالا على الطريقة التي تعامل فيها عصر السادات مع شخصية جمال عبد الناصر كما سأتحدث بعد قليل. فاللحظة التي يظهر فيها الفيلم هي أيضا أن السجناء في داخل السجن لا يعرفون عن الحرب إلا ما يسمعونه في الإذاعة، فالسجناء الذين يعذبهم عبد الناصر، هذه كانت سياق الفيلم. مع ذلك هم فرحوا حين سمعوا أن مصر انتصرت كما انتشر في البداية وبدأوا يرقصون وهكذا، ثم جاء الخبر الحقيقي حين سمعوا الخطاب واكتشفوا أنهم هزموا. فعادل إمام في الفيلم فيعني لا تستغربوا الناس المشاهدون. فيعني أنا في الجزء الخاص بهذا الخطاب أتتبع مثل هذه الأفلام وأناقش سياقاتها. Let me just conclude with some final remarks. As I said earlier, the book is about the history of the representations of Nasser in the Egyptian imaginary. By attempting to delineate plots that inform these representations, one could speak of a periodization of Nasser's image from the 1952 onward, resulting in certain stages, each of which was marked by a dominant approach towards Nasser. For instance, the negative representations of Nasser reached their apex during Sadat's regime, as expected, from 1970 to 1981, with a systematic attack on his legacy that sought to reduce it into scenes of torture, fear, and oppression. This attack was meant to establish a contrast between Nasser and Sadat, and to therefore bestow legitimacy over the radical changes that the latter introduced in the economic, political, and social directions of Egypt. Yet, the deterioration of the economic and social situations that were strongly felt in the last years of Sadat and persisted throughout Hosni Mubarak's Egypt initiated a positive comeback of Nasser's image that began in the early 1980s and dominated the ensuing years. This resurgence of a predominantly nostalgic view of Nasser in the last 3 decades is more informative, I argue, about the situation surrounding this resurgence in Egypt than about Nasser himself. That many Egyptians still yearn for the same ideals, dreams, and aspirations that Nasser had striven to realize very much indicates that Egypt has experienced a post-Nasser era only temporarily. Poverty, social injustice, and foreign hegemony have so much permeated the country that they became stable components of Egyptian life. Still worse, the waves of Islamic extremism, sectarian clashes, and migration of major intellectuals, from which Nasser's Egypt was largely free, were but a few symptoms of a decaying reality. This book was conceived almost a year prior to the 2011 Egyptian revolution, and all of the works that the book discussed predated. Naturally, it's still too early to offer a definitive answer for whatever impact the recent tumultuous events in Egypt will have on the image of Nasser and his meanings for Egyptians. That Nasser has been present in the 2011 revolution, however, is abundantly documented. The images from Tahrir Square that were circulated around the world included groups of Egyptians carrying pictures of Nasser, while live testimonies relayed the existence of several booths at Tahrir that broadcasted his speeches and well-known songs that were dedicated to him. Since 2011, one can speak of three major phases that have underscored the pertinence of Nasser to current events in Egypt. The first phase ushered in vibrant debates concerning the position that Nasser possessed vis-à-vis the 2011 revolution. The main question that dominated these debates centered on whether the 2011 revolution signified a rupture with the 30 years of Mubarak only, with Sadat's Egypt, or with the entire July 1952 regime, whether, that is, the contemporary Egyptian revolutionaries were continuity or a discontinuity with Nasser. The second phase coincided with the astounding rise of Hamedine Sabahi, which has undeniably reinvigorated questions concerning the place of the charismatic leader in post-2011 Egypt. A lifelong Nasserist, Sabahi was the dark horse candidate of the 2012 Egyptian presidential election, which is the first election that was held after the revolution, surprisingly finishing third by a narrow margin behind the Muslim brother and eventual winner Mohammed Morsi and the Mubarak-era Prime Minister Ahmed Shafiq. Described by many observers as a politician in the style of Nasser, Sabahi did not hide his political inclinations, building as he did on his hero's appeal towards the masses. However, he sought to maintain his own vision of presidency, attempting to avoid what he perceived as the pitfalls of Nasser. The phenomenon of Hamdin Sabahi cannot only be attributed to Egyptians yearning for a Nasser-like leader, for the fear of the Muslim Brotherhood and the ancient regime had surely driven many voters to search for a third way. Yet his presence served as an initial, if not foreshadowing, reminder of the image of Nasser and its unceasing allure for common Egyptians. Nowhere can the relevance of Nasser and the power of his image be better recognized, however, than with the ascension of former Minister of Defense Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to power. In the two well-known episodes, the Egyptian army intervened yet again in the political sphere, following days of massive protests against President Mohammed Morsi. On July 3, 2013, al-Sisi, then the chief general of the army, removed Morsi from power in what came to be disputed as either a coup or a second revolution. Almost a year later, al-Sisi, rescinding his initial decision not to run for presidency, has unsurprisingly won the presidential election against none other than Hamedine Sabahi himself, this time, however, with a much wider margin. With the emergence of al-Sisi and the inauguration of what Juan Cole described as Sisi mania, Nasser resurfaced again in Egyptian life. News channels have broadcasted thousands of Egyptians carrying posters that featured both Nasser and al-Sisi. Some of the country's leading intellectuals, such as Sun'al Ibrahim and Jamal al-Litani, have praised al-Sisi and announced him a continuation of Nasser. And al-Sisi himself, in various situations and interviews, has capitalized on this comparison and appeared rather flattered and humbled by it. Any Google search on the comparison between the two men will result in tens of hits, both in Arabic and English, covering a wide range of mediums, from songs to videos to newspaper op-eds and features, hotly engaging in a debate concerning the falsity or authenticity of this comparison. This recent al-Sisi-Nasser phenomenon, though unfinished and still unfolding, does nevertheless compel us to reflect on the prospects of the location of Nasser in the Egyptian imaginary. First, the strong resurrection of Nasser and his legacy in the past 3 years tells more about Egyptians than about al-Sisi himself. Up to his intervention in July 2013, al-Sisi was almost unknown to common Egyptians. Situating his photos next to Nasser's within a few months of his ascension is a form of wishful thinking. undoubtedly speaking to Egyptians longing for a Nasser-like figure to whom they could resort and in whom they might find solutions to the numerous precarious conditions engulfing them. While the initial months following the 2011 revolution had left Egyptians pondering the possibility of transcending the need for a strong leader and fashioning a new social contract where the military would enjoy a very limited role in public life, Sisi mania offered a rather definitive answer to this. No matter how much it was orchestrated by Egypt's official media outlets and personalities, and of course it was to a large extent, it was still undeniable that a Sisi-Nasser comparison touched upon certain nostalgic feelings among Egyptians. The associations that Nasser evoked in common Egyptians proved yet again to be a decisive factor which his successors could constantly appropriate, falsely or otherwise. Second, it is telling to note the way that Nasser was claimed and appropriated by official Egyptian media, businessmen, and Sisi's entourage. Largely consisting of figures whose social, political, and economic orientations are antagonistic to Nasser's, this influential segment of Egyptian society was nonetheless capable of selecting a few aspects of Nasser through which they could announce as Sisi his true inheritor, the most important of which was surely both men's crushing of the Muslim Brotherhood. As many observers have noted, the upper class and upper middle class that were calling Sisi the new Nasser and cheering for him would not tolerate to accept Nasser's social and economic policies once again in Egypt. Interestingly, Nasser became a floating signifier, a confusion of references whose determinate signification relies not so much on what he exactly did and called for, as it did on the power of those who capitalized on his image. This isn't to homogenize the entire sector of Egyptian society who adopted this view of Sisi as a new Nasser and render them essentially anti-Nasser. For a sizable number of those included renowned leftist intellectuals and activists in Egypt, and it even included members of Nasser's own family. Rather, it is to note how Nasser can be fragmented into multiple Nassers, each serving the needs of different sectors of Egyptian society. Third, although the dominant narrative among the Muslim Brotherhood, both in Egypt and outside, was to view their plight at the hands of Sisi as a reincarnation of their bloody conflict with Nasser back in the 50s and the 60s, a few voices within the Brotherhood sought to shatter the comparison between Nasser and Sisi, considering it a fake attempt to legitimize an otherwise illegitimate usurper of power. Tellingly, Nasser, a historic enemy of the Brotherhood, was partially redeemed, not so much in order to revisit the Brotherhood's perspective on him, as it was to further condemn Sisi and single him out as a ruthless tyrant, unprecedented in Egyptian history. As mentioned earlier, the dramatic comeback of Nasser since 2013 attests to his powerful image and his ability to haunt the Egyptian imaginary at such a critical moment in Egyptian history. Whether Sisi's performance will have an impact on Egyptians' remembering of Nasser is left to speculation. While Sisi's failures, easily noted by now, may lead common Egyptians to abandon the notion of the savior completely and dissociate it from their aspirations for a better future, it could nonetheless add more to the exceptionality of Nasser, elevating him to an unparalleled position that neither Sisi nor any other political figure could attain. It could prove yet again that for many Egyptians, Nasser is not only a historical figure, a leader who ruled over Egypt at a certain time in their distant past, succeeding occasionally and stumbling at many other times, but rather an idea, a synonym for social justice, dignity, and equality. Will these associations run their course and lose their spark someday in Egypt? Possibly. But until then, Nasser, as my book hopes to have made clear, continues to be an essential component of the Egyptian imaginary. Shukran jazeelan.